Welcome to Pixel Realms, the podcast where two geeks dive headfirst into the gaming multiverse. They're basically like Gandalf in a headset, minus the wisdom and magic. So, grab your snacks and level up your patience. Pixel Realms, where the pixels are real, but the knowledge, not so much.
Welcome to Pixel Realms. I am Mark.
I'm Joe.
This is episode 7. Originally, we were supposed to do the VTuber episode, as hinted and mentioned last week. We realized that the Game Awards were on Thursday, so we decided to watch the show together and do the episode about the Game Awards, and we'll just move the regular topic to next week. That being said, Joe, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mark and I were talking about the Game Awards prior to it even, obviously showing. And we
Yeah.
feel that one of the big things this year, or even in the past years, was that the Game Awards does a lot of indie stuff. That's great. It gives them major exposure. A
Yeah,
lot of
absolutely.
these indie companies, indie studios, indie one studio developers don't have the money and resources to put out advertisement on Twitter or X, Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, so it's great for them to be able to get this free press, and where there are hundreds of thousands of people watching to be able to see that title. So really, really cool stuff there.
Yeah, with the especially with a couple of the awards that they give out are indie based, and I think outside of one of the awards, I remembered two titles that I had heard of that I had forgotten about that were mentioned because they were up for awards, and then there was at least 3 or 4 other indie games. One of them that even won an award, I believe the game was called Neva, Neva.
Oh yeah.
I had never heard of it,
Ha 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 ha.
and yeah, I know, clever, but that's the thing. Like, it won an award. Someone like just a basic person like me had never heard of it. Instantly went to their Steam page to at least look at it, and I was like, "Oh, this is a pretty looking game." Like, if I'm looking for that kind of atmospheric kind of game, this is something that I might, purchase and try.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really cool. So we're not going to go into major detail about the Game Awards at all. This is more of just like an overview, our personal thoughts on it. And
Yeah.
one of the things, obviously, that started off from the very get-go was Harrison Ford himself coming out on stage.
They wheeled the poor old guy out there. It just got to shell out that corporate money.
Didn't they have Al Pacino last year or the year before? I think it was the year before. Maybe.
I think it was. I don't remember, but yeah, he definitely was on there.
Which Al Pacino has nothing to do with video games whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. At least Harrison Ford has some games movies he's been part of that have been turned into games. I don't think there's been a single Al Pacino movie turned into a video game ever. I don't think he's ever voiced anything in video games either. So
Al Pacino was Scarface, right?
Yeah.
I always confuse him for some reason. I don't know why I always confuse Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. I don't know why. They don't even look alike, right?
Yeah,
there's something about their names. So I know there was a Scarface based game, but that was at least, I think, 10 years ago. So obviously he wouldn't have had anything to do with anything recent. But that's about it
yeah.
for Al Pacino in video games.
I thought it's just weird. But
Yeah,
on
no,
to
definitely.
the big exciting stuff. For me, the biggest announcement, at least visually, we got to see was The Witcher 4. We've talked about this on so many episodes. I am a huge Witcher series fan. Mark is as well. My wife is. She's read all the books. We watched, the series. And to see the trailer was really, really cool. It was all CGI, of course. It's early development with Witcher 4. They recently just got the actual story script done, and now they're on to the graphic stuff. So it's a long ways to go. We're not going to see it until at the earliest 2026.
4 years.
Well, you
I
think 4?
4 years.
I don't.
I think 4.
They've expanded a lot, so
they can't risk another Cyberpunk.
well, they
And then
can't risk
especially
that,
with-
but they will.
I just don't think they will. I don't think they will, because look at how long it took them to get some of their credibility back by going into it and having to fix it as much as they did, and then they obviously had to do the DLC. Like, I just don't think they're a big enough company to where they can afford another public horse shit. Like, and then on top of that, it's The Witcher.
Well,
imagine it coming out and being as bad as Cyberpunk's release was, and it being your Witcher title. I don't know.
The biggest issue, though, with Cyberpunk was that it's built on the Red engine. It's in their internal house engine. It's a super complex, stated engine. Witcher 4 is based on the Unreal Engine, a much easier to develop engine. So I think things can progress a lot faster than they had with
maybe, yeah.
With Cyberpunk.
It's fair. It's fair. I don't expect to see it for 4 years, because I think by this point they've got to be fairly far into the development of the remake of Witcher 1.
That's a different studio, I think, doing that stuff though for them.
Is it? Okay.
I think
all
so.
Right.
I think I could be incorrect on that, but I think so.
I'm still going to stick with 4 years, but I wouldn't be shocked if I see it in 2026. Absolutely.
I think that would be the soonest, but your 4 years makes a lot of sense for sure. But anyway, so super excited about that. And
absolutely.
The trailer obviously showcased Ciri, which we knew was going to be the main protagonist in the Witcher 4 series. We know that Geralt and Doug Cockle will be back to voice him, and he'll be part of it in some way. Rumors have it that he will be like the narration part of it.
That's what I'm thinking.
So kind of see how that works out.
I think it's gonna be. He's gonna be doing narration, potential. Like, he's gonna probably end up in the Vesemir role of like the occasionally she stops in for a rest, and maybe he gets involved in a little bit of what the story's going on just from that aspect. But he's not the focus. He's not going to be going on the missions. Like, they've made that clear with the ending of the Witcher 3 DLCs that it seemed like it was time for Geralt to finally get his ride off into the sunset type thing. Which I'm sad, because I love Geralt as the character. I think Geralt is what made the games for me more than the games or the story. And that's just showing you how much I like the character. That's not saying anything negative about the game's storytelling or anything. That's just how strongly I felt about Geralt.
Yeah, I think he's an amazing character, and Ciri has the opportunity to do an extremely well done story as well. We've seen fantastic female protagonists in video games, in movies, and if they can keep what she had going on in 3 and just bring that to 4 with newer graphics, new engine, all that kind of jazz, I think it could be a phenomenal story.
Yeah. A quick question before we move on. Do you think that we're gonna get like we did with Geralt, and like how Geralt had a lot of flings? Do you think they're gonna do that with Ciri?
No.
Because we watched her grow up as a child. Like,
no, I would be shocked if there's any kind of love interest at all in this.
I see. I don't know. I'm very iffy. Like, I just don't see them dealing away from it completely, but I definitely don't think it's going to be. It's not going to be like the funny trysts that occasionally you get Geralt into. I think there's going to be like a love interest for maybe that game that maybe there's a quote unquote sex scene with. But outside of that, I think that's it. I don't think it's going to be quite like Geralt man-whoring.
I think it's going to be very much like Kratos. I think she's going to be like a female Kratos. Just maybe there was a love interest and they died or something, and now she's afraid of loving again, or she doesn't want to because it's so rare to find love. That might be her story. That's kind of what I would see out of Ciri. I don't see her having a fling or any kind of relationship in the story wise.
I'm curious. I think there's going to be. I just don't think. I think it's good, but I do think it's going to be more tame than what we would get from the Witcher games, because just of the aspect of the fact that we kind of grew up with Ciri, or she grew up with us. That I think that a lot of people don't want to see her in a sexualized light.
Hmm.
but it's still a CD Projekt Red game.
Yeah, but they're also turning the page, so you
You
know.
know, I'm just saying. I think there's going to be, but I think it at least maybe will be more tasteful
Yeah.
and not as numerous.
Yeah,
But
yeah, definitely not as
we'll see.
numerous. If there's anything,
Anyways,
yeah.
it was just a curiosity thing, like because of that was he was Geralt man whoring around sometimes was kind of funny.
Oh yeah,
You
for
did it
sure.
for fun.
Yeah. You know more about the Elden Ring stuff than I do. You read some of it
Uh,
recently, so what can you tell us about the new Elden Ring?
so, from my understanding, what it was, I think it's Elder. I think they're calling it Night Rain. I think is what I saw it was called. Because I wasn't sure. A lot of people weren't sure. We thought, okay, it's another DLC. From my understanding and from what I think you said that you even heard IGN talk about it.
Hmm.
It's a new game that's probably going to have a regular retail price, but it's basically like an Elden Ring roguelike game. You're going to play as one of the classes that you would pick in the game. You're not going to really customize the character, and then I guess you pick like a target. Or, for example, like I don't know, I don't know a lot of the bosses in there, but I guess I know there's like a tree boss. So, you pick the tree boss, and then I guess you get like it takes place. Was it 2 or 3 days? They said
Something like that,
in
yeah.
game days that lasted like 10 or 15 minutes to find like stuff and I guess collect things or kill enemies and power up. Then you fight the boss, and then if you beat the boss at the end of the thing, you start back over at level 1, but you keep your upgrades. It's basic roguelike shit, but they're doing a FromSoft spin on it.
Yeah, we talked
I
about it in the past about rogue game or not rogue game, soul-like games. We're not huge fans of them, but they're
no,
there for people. People are interested in that kind of stuff, and it's
I like
great to have
roguelites.
those. Was
Um,
yeah. Oh yeah, you
I,
like
I
roguelike, yeah.
I like roguelites. I don't like Souls games, even though like some could say that at times they could be similar. It's fairly similar-ish,
Yeah.
but I don't know. And then my biggest turnoff for that is that Elden Ring's going to probably be a $70 price point. And most roguelike games that I buy, anyways, are usually, lighter, more indie or indie based titles that you're probably dropping 15 to 30 bucks tops, not $70.
Yeah.
You know,
So it's obviously it's gonna sell well. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna
yeah.
be a great game for those
Mm,
interested in that kind of stuff.
yep.
But obviously something that we won't really cover on the channel because we're not really interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we have Civ 7. We're not gonna touch too much on it. It's a Civ game. They've been all the same. They've all been pretty good. So if you like those kind of what they call it, 4x4 kind of games,
Hmm.
obviously it will be great. It's a continuation. We'll see what kind of new advancements they make in that series, but it looks pretty good from what we see. It's going to have a great soundtrack as always. I
Yep.
was shocked by this one. Outer Worlds 2 was announced, and
Yeah.
yeah, both Mark and I played the first one. I played it twice. Mark didn't play the DLC, right? Is that what you said?
No, I played it at launch. Like right when it came out. I think I can't remember if I'm pretty sure it was through Game Pass, as a matter of fact. And I played it to completion. Was disappointed that there was like I think there was at least 2, if not 3, planets still locked. And unfortunately for me, like I didn't have the time to sit there and to wait for it. I don't ever remember them actually announcing the DLC coming out. It just kind of like you had to. It just felt like you had to follow the game closely to be like, oh, and here's the DLC, by the way. I never remember hearing like something like a big deal being made about the DLC coming out, so I didn't even know it had come out at any point.
Yeah, it was good. I liked the DLC. It wasn't obviously as good as the main story, but it was it was fine. We knew that there was going to be a Borderlands 4
Yep.
video game coming out, and both Mark and I, before the show even started, we were commenting about if they'd have the balls to actually announce the Borderlands 4, given how badly the movie did. But they did, and they're trying to move on past the movie and go into number 4 now.
Well,
And
because it's money. It's money.
yeah, Borderlands 4 will be fine. It'll be a great game. It looks, based on what we saw, it looks like the shell shade's a little bit step back. Like it's not as prominent.
It
It's still
it
there.
did look more like your standard. 3D, I guess CGI stylized game. It didn't have it didn't have that Borderlands look to it. It looked actually fairly plain because Borderlands has always done cell shading in a way that it also it was felt distinctly Borderlands. So that look, at least with that trailer. I mean, one trailer isn't enough to really define it, but I was like, we were a little surprised at almost the seemingly change in art direction.
Yeah. But like I said, it's going to be a looter shooter. It's going to be fine. It's going to be the traditional game that they do, and so I'll play it eventually. It'll be interesting to see how it does.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and stepping out of a time machine, Virtua Fighter. Did you see that on any bingo card? Was there a bingo card for Virtua Fighter?
So Mark and I were trying to decide what we want to call the title of this episode, and we were playing with some things about it being a lot of stuff from the past. Surprisingly, they did not announce a Seaman number 2. If you remember from the Dreamcast, you'd have the little fish and you get to talk to him. That was not announced.
I'll be honest. I would play the shit out of that, or like a modernized Seaman. Holy
Oh, for
fuck.
sure. I think a lot of people would, especially think about VR. Imagine that. Oh, Jesus. But they did not announce that. But they did announce, as Mark was going with, Virtua Fighter, and shocked the hell out of me.
I'm trying to see something real quick. Do you want to take a stab? Do you want to take a guess at when the last released Virtua Fighter game was? I don't know if this is confirmed. I'm on Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt.
2001.
Well, they don't have the Dreamcast release on here, so this can't be accurate. 1996.
Yeah, that can't be right.
Yeah, that can't be right because that's Sega Saturn came out in 95, the Sega Saturn version. The arcade remix version was in 95, the Saturn remix version. There was a 32X version. Yeah, I wonder why it's not on here because it definitely came out for the Dreamcast, right?
I'm pretty sure it did.
Yeah, it's got to be wrong. It's got to be like 2000 something. It was
well, there was Virtua Fighter Revo, which was that's a new one. Okay, 2003.
Let's see. Wait. Here we go. 2006 Virtua Fighter 5.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
There we go. So it did
make off by 5 years. Not bad.
Yeah, it did make an appearance on the PS3, PS4, and 360. So not as long as I thought, but it's been a while.
Yeah, it's still been 16 years.
I mean, damn, man! Like with the games like Tekken now, and the way Street Fighter's gone, like, what's it gonna do to like? They can't rely on nostalgia to sell it.
Well, maybe they think that that's gonna. I think nostalgia, as cool as it can be, is also started to finally been enough for a lot of consumers. Like, when the idea first came out that, oh sure, let's play some of these things from the past, or let's get some of the things from the past, they threw it so much at us, and now we're just like, all right, we're done with that. Let's move on.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Joe. Do you want to continue? Because there's a lot of games that we're gonna talk about briefly. Do we want to talk about a couple of the actual awards real quick? So the reason why I'm asking Joe on the air, instead of like pre-thing, is because the game, it's called the Game Awards. Yes, the awards aren't really what people watch this show for. The Game Awards, it's great that they recognize the games and the people who made the games, absolutely. But from the public eye, let's be realistic. We're watching the show for the game trailers. We're watching this because it's a mini E3. In a way,
we watch this like people watch the Super Bowl. They watch it for the trailers.
and yeah, exactly. And that's a good analogy there. And like, in a way, this is better than E3 in the sense that like E3 was a strain on everybody in the gaming industry. They often said how much they dreaded E3 because they had to put on an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours if you were Xbox presentation and try and keep it engaging and keep announcing games. And that's why you would always get segments with your EA Sports titles that no one gave a shit about, that you knew were going to come out because it was a new year and a new sports game, and why they would try and fit all kinds of stuff. These kind of shows, these kind of things do it better in the sense that a company or a publisher can just focus on that one title that they're excited about and that they're working on, instead of being like, we're working on this, but then we're also going to be working on this, and this. It's like, we got this one thing that we want to present, and this is my focus, and not convolute with like trying to give you like 30 games in a show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got next. We have Astrobot, which won a lot, and they won best. They won game direction, right? Best game direction.
Yeah, game direction, and was one that we were surprised because it's kind of a children's game. I don't know what direction you need for, and then it won Game of the Year. Like what? What? I hadn't even heard about the game until like I think a month ago, because I think it's a PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah.
Nobody, I guarantee you, nobody bought a PlayStation for Astrobot.
No.
If they did, they're lying, or they have children. Which then, okay, I'll give it to you. That one shocked me. I'm not upset at it per se, because I had assumed that the kind of the stigma with the Game Awards have always been, it's been fairly rigged. You always knew what you were getting. When God of War, for example, is up for an award, it's going to win. When Elden Ring was up for an award, or a FromSoft game was up for an award, it was going to win. If anything Kojima related is involved, you have to make sure that Jeff is wearing dark pants so that you can't see the stain in front. This year was actually, I think, the first year I was genuinely surprised that people were winning, that I was like, there's no shot in hell.
Yeah, there was a couple. I was like, geez, I can't believe it. And Astrobot winning Game of the Year blew me away. I didn't think that would have a chance in hell but good for them.
Really
I
agree. I agree. I 100% agree.
The question will always be, did Sony pay off anyone to get some of these title recognitions? Helldivers did really well. Obviously, we talked about Astrobot, and then what was there's some other title in there too that Sony was part of that got some recognition.
Oh crap, I don't remember.
I can't think of it either.
Silent Hill? No, that's EA, right?
No, that's EA. I don't think it's EA. I don't remember who that is, but there was something else. But Sony was a no-show pretty much the last 2 years at the Game Awards, and then finally got some recognition this year with some stuff. So that's good for them. Like, obviously,
they haven't put out a game yet.
Yeah, but Sony is a major part of the gaming industry. It is massive, and they will probably always be a major part of the industry. So for them to kind of get back up on the horse there and go for a ride and see what happens is good for them, instead of just saying, oh, well, we lost a battle. So they got some amazing IPs, and we'll talk about one here later on in the episode. Mark, you can take over this next one.
Metaphor won a surprisingly amount. Now, Metaphor, for most people who probably never heard of the game, it's an Atlas game. It's made essentially by the same people who make Persona and the Shin Megami Tensei series. They're very popular, but they're very popular usually with a niche audience. It won RPG of the Year. It won Game Narrative of the Year and Art Direction. Artistically, it's a beautiful game. Narratively, it's if I'm believing, my brain's not 100% here. Narratively, I believe is like story direction, or if I'm not mistaken, correct, Joe?
I think so. Yeah.
So and I haven't even played the game. Here's the thing: I'm being honest. I haven't played the game, but I've watched a decent amount of it without completely spoiling myself, because I intend to play it. And what I watched of it, whenever I was watching it, like the whatever was going on story wise always interested me. It was like, oh, that character sounds cool, or what they're saying sounds like it's got like some structure there that I wonder what it's attached to. And then I'm a big JRPG fan. I'm a big RPG fan. It winning and being a probably the most JRPG game that's probably won an award at one of these kind of shows since maybe Persona 5 is great to me, and I'm very happy that it won, and I was very surprised because I just figured it hasn't been out that long. It came out this year, but I think it came out in like, I want to say middle of the year. I want to say it came out
No,
July,
and
August.
that's what I want to actually play a little devil's advocate with you. It came out October 11th.
Okay, so it came out in
Less,
October. Yeah.
just about 2 months.
Yep.
So did it win because it's the hottest thing right now, or did it win because it actually was the best game? Did people forget
That
about
one.
stuff early on this year?
So that's the thing. That one you can't really know. I'm I'm going to say no because no, I don't know of anybody other than myself and in my entire friends group who had ever heard of Metaphor. If I asked your cousin, he would say no. If I asked my other friends group, they'd say no. What's that? If I asked my WoW guild, most of them would say no. Nobody that I knew what that game was. If you go on Twitch, which is like I watch a lot of Twitch.tv, I watch a lot of streamers, um, and practically there was really nobody playing the game. I think I had one streamer that I consistently watch that fit it into like her rotation of games once a week. I'm looking at the categories right now. There is 232 people streaming Metaphor. The highest view person has 31 viewers.
And see, that's what it makes it really interesting because if you look at it from an outsider, you don't really play games, but you look at those numbers and you're like, how the freaking hell did that game win Game of the Year? Or not Game of the Year, but how'd that win so many awards when no one's playing it?
Mm-hmm.
It makes you think, oh, who's paying who off? But that can't be the case in this game because
I don't think so.
it won awards that would make sense for its style of play.
It was up against Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, another JRPG, another very narrative heavy, story heavy game. Hellblade 2, Like a Dragon, the newest Like a Dragon game, another very narrative story based game. Silent Hill 2, another very narrative driven game. Art direction, it was up against Astrobot, which won a bunch of big awards. Black Myth Wukong, which won a bunch of big awards, and Elden Ring DLC, which won a bunch, which actually didn't win almost any awards, if any, which was very surprising because they were up for
super surprising.
a ton. And then what was the other one I said it won? It won JRPG or RPG, and it was up again against Elden Ring, Final Fantasy VII, Like a Dragon, and Dragon's Dogma. I argue that Like a Dragon / Yakuza games, maybe not household names yet, but definitely well known because they're done by Sega.
Mhm.
And even casual gamers have probably at least heard the name Final Fantasy. So in this case, I definitely don't think it was a case of someone got paid or off, but I also don't think it was definitely not like a popularity thing in the sense of like it's like not the big game that everyone was talking about.
Well, my question is like, so best role-playing game, it was up against some decent role-playing games, obviously, and one of them was Dragon's Dogma, which was huge in the first half of the year when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
So like if they flopped roles and Dragon's Dogma was the one that came out in October, would they have won?
That's it. Who could tell? Who could say? I would argue no because Dragon's Dogma is an RPG, but it's more stylized like a Monster Hunter game. It's it's very I don't know it. those kind of games, like Capcom games, like Dragon's Dogma, usually have big drop offs. Like usually, so it's not abnormal to see a game like Dragon's Dogma come out strong and then just kind of fade to obscurity.
Yeah, and it also had a rough launch
Yeah,
with performance and whatnot, so it makes sense.
and that
But
and that
it's
could have been a big part of it.
it's interesting just to kind of think about time frames when stuff come out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Turok, a game that I haven't played in forever.
Yeah.
Honestly can't remember last time I played a Turok game. I know there have been some since, early 2000s. I think there was like a VR or something like that one. But it's interesting to have this come back. It's an interesting time for it to come back, and we'll see how it does.
It's crazy. So, I think I may have played a Turok game on the Genesis.
Before we jump into the next two, Mark, let me just jump into Mafia, and then I want you to talk about the other three. I haven't played any of the Mafia games myself, but I've always been
Yeah.
interested to it. So eventually I want to play it, but there'll be a new Mafia game coming out, which is cool. The funny thing is, Mark and I were talking early on because there were rumors about this, but not so much. Would GTA 6, a new GTA 6 trailer come out? And of course, 2K did not. They did Mafia instead. And so it was good on them, like smart marketing, because anyone who is in gaming will eventually watch a new GTA 6 trailer when it comes out, and they do not need to be at the Game Awards for that. But
Nope.
Mafia isn't nearly anything close to as big as GTA, so it's a great place for them to showcase that series, for sure.
Yeah. And GTA 6 won for most anticipated game of next year.
Shocking.
Yeah, I know, right? But it was
Shocking.
up against some. It was up against quite a few games where you could argue like they have very heavy fan bases. Monster Hunter has a huge fan base. Of course, now that we're recording, I'm drawing a blank, but there was a couple really big titles that it was like if they weren't up against a GTA
Death
6.
Stranding 2, Metro
Well,
Prime.
Kojima,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like these games would have definitely had a shot at winning if there wasn't GTA 6 slapped up against it.
And like I am not, GTA is a fine game. So many people play it. Obviously, it's a big deal. I used to play GTA 3 all the time, and then I kind of lost interest in the Grand Theft Auto
Yeah.
series. But the 6 is going to be absolutely amazing. I'm sure it's going to have incredible open world ability. The world is so lifelike. So when it comes to like what 2K does with those type of games, Red Dead Redemption 2, think about that. If you just sit there and walk around the world, the NPCs kind of just have their own life. They do their own thing. It's not like a staged thing. It's incredible the amount of detail that they do within the game, and 6 will be no different.
Well, let's be real. The online aspect is what kept GTA as popular for as long as it is. Their GTA Online that they basically, came out with 5 or around the time 5 came out. That is what people know, right? Like GTA 5 itself was an okay game. I didn't like I already never really played a lot of the stories of the GTA games because those kind of games I get into to have my little chaos and I go away. But I specifically didn't like one of the characters in GTA 5 enough that like when he took on like a lot of when it was your turn to play as him, I got turned off on the game really fast. So I never completed it. So but GTA RP servers are huge, still huge. Going to this day, you could click on any like streaming service and I get like YouTube or Twitch, and I guarantee you there's probably a bunch of people role playing in one of those worlds. So
It is
yeah,
massive.
it's and a lot of people take GTRP very very seriously. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
so it'll be very interesting to see. I think people are more excited about what they think is going to be improved online than they are the actual GTA game. GTA 6 the game.
Yeah, the story itself will be, whatever, 30,
Yeah.
30 to 60 hours, depending on how much you play into it,
Mm-hmm.
which will be fine. But it's gonna be the live connectivity kind of crap that will go on forever for a decade,
Yep.
and then be re-released and re-released and re-released on different consoles and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, you get the other three. They're more in your alley.
Well, They kind of are, but they kind of aren't. Onimusha has been around since I want to say. I think I remember playing it back on the PlayStation 1 or maybe the PlayStation 2. It's fairly like it's kind of like a Dynasty Warrior style game. You're like a samurai and you're usually killing like a bunch of enemies. I think it originally started out. I might be actually. I think it originally started out as a very similar to like a Devil May Cry, and then I think one of the last entries maybe became more Dynasty Warriors, or I might just be misremembering. But it was a fairly well known, popular series that kind of fell off. They had a bunch of entries that were just kind of lackluster. Um, and games like Devil May Cry just did Devil May Cry style gameplay better. Uh, Double Dragon. I played that way back on the NES. Double Dragon 2, I played the Double Dragon and the Battletoads. There was like a collab where there was a game where they were together, and I thought that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
They were old. They're side scrolling beat 'em ups. I don't know if this one's going to be that way. But a new Double Dragon game in 2025, I guess. Considering, like I said, I remember playing it back on the NES. It's crazy to me. And then the big blast reveal drop that a lot of people were shocked about, I think, and maybe disappointed about, because there were rumors. There was rumors that we might even actually get the fabled Half-Life 3 trailer or at least announcement.
But of course,
Okami,
if Valve does that, like we
yeah,
talked about it, but Valve, just like 2K, Valve would be smart to just do their own thing because people would watch it.
yeah. Okami 2 though. So Okami 2 was the big announcement. I personally don't have a big deep connection with the game. I don't. I've seen a lot of it. Never really sat down and fully played it myself. It's a beautiful, gorgeous, stylized game, and a lot of people really adore this game, and I can understand why. It's just there's something about it. Just the way they put that game together. That's just like a mixture of just a good game with gorgeous graphics, but in like a stylized way. It wasn't so much about the graphics being like high end, whatever. It just something about the art style was always beautiful. But that was the big reveal that everyone was like not expecting, and I saw people on Twitter and on streams just collectively losing their minds.
Yeah, and I don't know a whole lot about any of those titles. So, Double Dragon, I know enough about, but those are definitely more of Mark's thing. But I remember as we were watching the show together, that was a big thing that came up for him to be excited about. Um, Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog had two things showing off at the Game Awards. The first was the PC version of The Last of Us 2 coming, which I had a lot of fun with the original Last of Us on PS3, PS4, and
Mm.
then also recently on the PC. And I'm hoping, because I don't think there's a release date yet for the second season of The Last of Us, I'm hoping that this the second season starts after after the release of the PC version of Last of Us 2, because I have not played 2 yet, and I kind of want to play the game before I watch the series personally. But I'm super excited about that. And then there was their new IP. We knew that they were working on a new IP. They had talked about this. They said they're done with the Uncharted series. They said they're at least taking a break from the Last of Us series. And here we are with Intergalactic, which I remember Mark's like, well, what? Well, I think I know what that is. That's this, or that's that. And then as the game continued going, the trailer kept going forward. You're like, no, I don't know what the hell this is. And we thought maybe it was an alien game. But Naughty Dog released the trailer for Intergalactic, which looks really interesting, very interesting. And I have enjoyed all of their games, all of their IPs for the most part, and I'm super excited about this one. Would they say 2026 for the release of it, I
Yes.
think.
Yeah, at least 2026.
So
Um,
I'm excited. They've been working on it since 2020, so they've already got 4 years head start on it. So I'm super
yeah,
excited.
I'm not as excited. I don't dislike Naughty Dog games. I recognize them for they usually put out at least quality stuff. I never really jump into them for whatever reason. It looks good. I kept saying that it sounded because the vibe that it was giving off and some of the background music was playing. It sounded very familiar to things that at least I had seen or heard in the past. Where I was like, "Wait, is this possibly something like this?" And it's like, "Oh no." So I was surprised that it was just a brand new IP in general. Um, I'm gonna withhold judgment until I see more of it to see if it's my style of game. But a new IP is great. Like, I've never shit on uh, companies doing new IPs. Period. Because rehashing the same genre, the same game, or smacking the name of a game series on top of something just to sell copies has definitely never been my thing. So companies doing new IPs and hopefully trying something new or something different is what always keeps the gaming industry, I think, growing. And so I'm all for a new IP and from a reputable company. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about it. It's unfortunate that it will be released on PS5, of course, and then
So you'll have
eventually
to wait
to the
another 2 years
PC. So yeah, so maybe 2028 I'll be able to play it because I'm not buying a PS5 anytime soon, and if ever. So
and
that's
PS6
unfortunate.
will be out by then.
Yeah, probably. And of course, we talked about Astrobot winning Game of the Year, which is
Yeah.
shocking. It looks fun, and if it comes to PC, like I'll play it. It looks like a fun little. I'm trying to think of there's a game on the Crack, I think Kraken or Knock. I think it's Knack. Maybe it's Knack. There's a game on the PS4. I think it was called Knack. It kind of reminds me of that, like art style gameplay, and I had a lot of fun playing that game. And I think Astrobot's kind of like that. So,
Mhm.
if it comes to PC, I'll give it a shot. But I'm definitely not buying a PS5 for that title.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Mark and I decided we were first gonna talk about what we thought our Game of the Year awards should have been. But then Mark made a valid point. We hadn't played many of the games, and it's not fair to criticize on that. So, what about our game, uh, top played game of 2024? Mark, I'll let you start because you have a little bit more of a drawn out
Uh,
story than
I
I do.
I really don't. I was thinking the more I even thought about it, I was like, it's only going to be one of two games, or three. Uh, World of Warcraft, Baldur's Gate 3, or surprisingly Supermarket Simulator. Uh, and then I kind of eliminated Baldur's Gate 3 from it because I was like, I have 325 hours into Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm pretty sure I maybe only put about 20 or 30 hours into it this year. So I'm pretty sure the bulk of it was from last year. So it had to be either World of Warcraft or I was surprised I have 111 hours in Supermarket Simulator. I knew I played a lot of it. I didn't think I'd play that much, but apparently I was wrong. And then WoW is just again, I've said it before. It's unfortunately, for better or for worse, my go-to turn brain off, head empty, derp derp, clicky clicky, pushy buttons, no think, draw on myself game.
Hmm.
Like, and that's that. So I could sink hours into that game and do absolutely nothing and be completely fine with that.
And that's great. That's great to have those kind of games. We've talked about before. Our entire podcast is all about video games and how it impacts our life, and that's great to have a game that you can dive into.
Yeah.
Lose your mind when things aren't going right, or you just need to turn off the brain.
And for Joe, he really only has one game. He's only ever had one game, and he will only ever, for the rest of his life, have one game.
That is not true hold on now. Before 2020, I didn't really do a lot of flight simming. I jumped to, I maybe did 5 to 10 hours a month. Obviously, since Flight Sim 2020 came out, it changed a lot. But prior to that, I didn't do a lot of Flight Sim. So you can't say only ever had, because it's definitely not true. It's true for the last 4 years. But of course, Flight Sim, and then second place would be Diablo 4 for sure with the DLC. And then, as Mark said, with WoW, Diablo's that for me as well. Turn the brain off, have some good time, and kill whatever demons are out there. And
Yeah.
finally, we have our most anticipated game of 2025. And
Yeah, you 100% need to start because mine did this. This is a little more convoluted for me.
okay, so for me, there's really only two. If Witcher 4 was in there, if Galactic was in there, that it might be different. I'm not interested in the Grand Theft Auto stuff personally, so I know that will shock quite a bit of people for me not being number one. But for me, honestly, Doom, the new Doom, what's it called? Dark Ages, I think. I'm super excited about that. I've loved the Doom games. I love how they've changed the Doom games over the past whatever it's been 10 years, and each one of them have been really really fun. They've added some elements to it that can be a little bit annoying, but the foundation is the same. You take a big gun and you kill disgusting demons in very violent ways, and it's a great time. And then Metroid, which is surprising to me because I'm not a big Metroid fan, but I would love to play a Metro game on the Switch. I think it'd be really, really cool. I would not be shocked as hell if
the last one was really good, Dread.
Yeah.
And it was very surprising. People weren't expecting it. I don't think a lot of people were expecting it or expecting it to be that good because it kind of came out of nowhere. And it got really good reviews from actual people playing the game.
I wouldn't be surprised, and people will, if you're watching this, you'll be like, "Oh, what?" I wouldn't be surprised if Metroid is packaged with a Switch 2, because we know the announcement shall be coming sometime next year at some point. So it may not make it to the Switch 1. It may be a Switch 2 exclusive, and it would not surprise the hell out of me. But we'll see what happens. Nintendo has a lot of things up its sleeve, and they're very smart with marketing. And we haven't heard of a new Mario game coming out, so just saying, just throwing it out there. New Mario game with Metroid as the Switch 2 launch.
So you think it could be a launch title?
I think it could be.
Wow, because I don't think I'm just trying to think. It's usually Mario or Zelda that comes with a console, and it's definitely not going to be Zelda.
No,
and there's been no talks of Mario. So
that's what I'm saying. I think there's a Mario up their sleeve. I think they have one developed. They're working on it. That's why I'm saying it's going to be Mario and Metroid as their launch titles.
You could be on it. Yeah, you could be onto something there. I didn't even think about that as a possibility, but it's not outside the realm of because they don't package games with their releases anymore. Like they do bundles later on. Like I know you can get usually around Christmas time you can get a Switch, but it's usually with like Mario Kart.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, there isn't anybody on the planet Earth that doesn't own Mario Kart. Even if you don't own a Switch and never bought Mario Kart, you probably own Mario Kart. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
It's like saying someone who doesn't own Skyrim, like you don't play, even if you don't play video games, you probably own Skyrim and you just don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
It's on your wash machine. It's on your refrigerator. It's somewhere you've got Skyrim.
Yeah.
Maybe your toilet paper. I don't know, but yeah, I didn't think about that. Is shit, Joe. That was actually. I think you might be onto something. I could really, I could see it be a launch title. Definitely.
We'll see what happens.
That's crazy, huh? All right, so for me, mine's a little more complicated. I was trying to decide: do I want to just say games that I'm looking forward to that are coming out next year, or do I want them to be new games? Because if I'm just naming anything, there's a remastered version of a Tales game, which is a JRPG that I'm excited for anything Tales that comes out. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming to PC. I'm excited about. But those I'm not really adding. So I've got a couple. The first one that I'm really excited for is Orcs Must Die Death Trap. It's a more I think it's another Orcs Must Die game. I love the Orcs Must Die series. For some reason, their style of game and how they develop their game just scratches that weird itch in the because I'm not a huge tower defense guy, but there's something about the way that game is done that just scratches that itch that I didn't know I had. And I think it's going to be a little even more focused on multiplayer this time around because before you could play part one was solo only. Second one I think is when they added like co-op, and then the third one you had like multiple characters you could choose from and play co-op. But I think this one time around it's going to be like 3 or 4 players.
Jeez.
So like that one's the one that I was big on. I had a notepad where I had everything written down, and my dumbass forgot to hit save. So when I restarted my computer this morning, it was gone. So I'm trying to just find stuff real fast. Obviously, Civ 7, it's already been announced. It's a go-to game. It's a great game, and I'm looking forward to playing that. I'm scrolling through my list real quick. I'm not as much. I love Yakuza games, but this is just a spin-off, so I'm not going to talk about the pirate one. Although one of the characters that I really like, a character named Majima, being a fucking pirate is an amazing character choice, and it will probably be a blast because those kind of games usually don't miss. And like when they do their side stuff, it's usually just zany fun. Trying to find the other one that I was really looking forward to, and of course now that I'm looking for it, it's not showing up like right on my radar, but I'm trying to like talk and find it at the same time. There's not dead air for Joe to edit out. But I'm trying to find it real fast because a couple of the games that are too far out to even talk about, like I was going to say The Witcher 4 as well, like you, but it's like realistically it's at least 2 years, if not 3 years away, so that wouldn't fit into this criteria. But shoot, now I'm upset because I can't find it. There's one more game on here that like I was like fairly excited for. I guess like I have a hard time getting excited for anything anymore. Once you hit your 40s, you're excited because you get out of bed. So there is one. One of my other big games is kind of obscure. Well, I can't call it obscure because it has a huge fan base in Japan. There's a JRPG series called The Legend of Heroes that if you look it up, there are tons of games for. There's the Trails in the Sky series. There's the Cold Steel series. And then I think they've gone into a new series. Well, they're remaking Trails in the Sky 1, which basically the original game was like an old, almost like SNES style. Very little voice acting or noise made, the very old school walk around town, collect quests with like an interwoven story. But this is going to be stylized, made with, bright characters, look modern, have modern voice acting. And it's just like, it scratches that JRPG nostalgia itch by while also having a fresh coat of paint on an already great game that all they really have to do is just make the same game, just make it modern, where the game looks great, has good, all the pretty colors are pretty, and has like the same story, and it's going to be great. But like nothing like superstantial, like, oh my God. Oh, and the last game, the only other one that I'll mention, Pokemon Legends Z/A. Pokemon has always been bad at naming games, but it's a Pokemon game. Even the Scarlet and Violet, which gets a lot of criticism for having like frame issues and all that stuff. I played the hell out of it, enjoyed it. I think it was the first time in a long time I had actually completed the Pokedex, and I'd gotten every Pokemon that you could possibly catch in the game. So I put a ton of time into that game. So anything Pokemon, I'm going to mention, because until I get just a flat out, I don't give a shit stinker, I'm gonna care about Pokemon, just regardless. But yeah, that's kind of my thing. Those are my anticipated games, because everything else otherwise either I've forgotten about it, isn't mainstream enough to really be talked about yet because it's probably indie. Because a lot of my games that I end up loving by the end of the year are games that probably haven't even been made yet and will just get made and then come out, and people will be like, oh, what's this game? Start playing it. I'll see streamers start playing it, and I'll buy it and play it myself and be like, holy shit, I really love this fucking game. And it ends up being my game of the year.
Yeah, there's quite a few games like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So the Game Awards was interesting. Like it was some games won that we weren't expecting. Astrobot won Game of the Year, which we definitely were not expecting. There was a couple surprising trailers that came out. Witcher, Intergalactic, a couple other ones in there as well. It's a very retro, bring back old school titles award show as well. And so I think this is probably my favorite Game Award show in the past couple of years. It had the most uniqueness of it.
This is easily the best Game Awards show I've seen in it. The last two I hated for sure. I hated 2023's and I hated 2022's. I don't even remember if I liked 2021's, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I don't remember enough to know whether I hated it or liked it. So I just know I didn't like the previous 2 years. So this was definitely the best one in at least the last 2 years, in my opinion.
And I know they're not, but if, the people who made that show are paying attention to this podcast, the thing that was unique was that it wasn't always the big game that won the awards. It was actually, it seemed to be at least the game that made sense to win that award, and not just, oh, well, Elden Rings, oh, Elden Rings, oh, Elden Rings.
Yeah, because I went into this award show, I saw how many awards Elden Ring was up for, and I instantly said Elden Ring's won all of these. Yeah, and I don't think they won any. I'm actually thinking, I actually don't think they won any awards last night.
I don't think they did either. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they didn't. I think I looked at the list and I didn't see anything.
That's crazy to me. So it might actually go to show that you can't just stick a title on a DLC and expect it to be your best game ever. Elden Ring as a whole is a good game, even for people like me who don't like Souls-like games. It's the only Souls-like game that I actually still want to play, eventually get to and sit down and play. So obviously I would play the DLC, but I don't want you to stick a DLC out there as almost like a standalone, like it's not a DLC, and then especially try and like win awards from games that deserve it, that made a whole new game,
Absolutely. So unless you have anything else to mark, I think we got a good wrap.
No, that's it. I'm glad we covered it. It's a once a year thing, and we ironically or thankfully we had this podcast going by then. So I've always wanted to do one of these kind of shows where it's like, oh, we watched an award show. And we get to talk about it, kind of thing. So I got to check that off my bucket list. Yeah. Next week should be the topic that we originally planned, unless something else comes up. I'm looking forward to talking about that because it's a subject matter that's important to me. So yeah.
Yeah. This episode will come out a little earlier than normal, just to make sure that it's relevant enough for people who are interested in hearing our take on the Game Awards, and then we'll go back to regular schedule programming. With our special one that Mark's working on.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks to everyone for listening as always, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.